It's almost time. It literally is almost time for the rookie scouting portfolio. We are on the eve of the RSP season. And of course, talking NFL draft and NFL with Sigmund Bloom and Matt Waldman. It is the Audible Live. And Matt, we will begin with you, Mr. Beast Mode. How you hanging in there as you get down to the final touches of the 2018 rookie scouting portfolio available at mattwaldmanrsp.com?
Well, I can't wait till April because I've nicknamed March the month of slog for my for my household, and it pretty much has been. And if the slog doesn't creep up behind me and like bite me from what I've left of a trail in my office, everything should be going pretty well. I have a really great team of editors who volunteered to help out. So, just kind of going through those and should be ready April 1st. If not a little bit before, we'll see.
I feel jealous about those editors because they get to see it first.
They do. But they also get to see all the things. They go, you were obviously asleep right here when you were writing this. And what does this mean? And that kind of stuff. So they get to see the really crazy behind the scenes bad stuff. So they make me look good.
Simply fantastic, Bloom. And of course, we know it is draft season, the best time of year. The show started in draft season. I have to get the official date, Bloom, but we're around 13 years,
12 year anniversary
season, something like that. But long time. And this is the best time of year, brother, even though it's the season of lies, which we're going to get to.
Well, it is because we get to see what teams are really about, what matters to them. But I want to ask Matt, is that a pretty fresh off the mint Rams hat?
Yes, I bought myself. I've been collecting hats, so I bought a Rams hat about 3 months ago, and I bought also a 49ers hat and a Packers hat. I gotta get me a Chiefs hat though.
Yeah, well,
really Mahomes, man,
Sammy Watkins. Yeah. In that Rams hat, I mean, the plate tectonics. You were ahead of the curve, Matt, because with Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald next to each other, unprecedented. And if they can bring Odell Beckham in, then I don't think you're going to take that hat off until February.
Probably not, but I mean, I would be a fair weather fan of that. But I'm certainly happy to see a team that's gone from as pitiful as they've been to really turning things around, and they stayed patient with their quarterback, and they found someone to work with him and fit to his strengths. And they stayed patient with Gurley, and they built a line around him. And when you look at Wade Phillips and what he's able to get with Peters and Talib, I mean, that's just fantastic. So this team looks poised to be in a situation where really it's going to be, all right, offense, can you keep us in ball games? Because the defense is going to help them win it.
Well, I love how the Vikings were like, we're going to get Kirk Cousins. We're going to spend all this money, or, we're going all in a Super Bowl run. And the Rams were like, hold my beer. We got this. We just back up there, Minnesota. Go chill for a while. Yeah, it's going to be tremendous. Odell Beckham Jr., Bloom, you brought it up. Let's start there. ODB. I mean, I love the fact that the Giants are like, we're not going to trade him, but we take 2 first-round picks. What's the end story here?
Well, and I've said that if they were to franchise him next year, that a playoff team should give up 2 first-round picks for him. And my personal take on this, I'll try not to belabor this too much, but this is massive. I mean, it's a story that deserves a lot of talk. It deserves a lot of thinking. Players of Odell Beckham's caliber don't end up on the market. I mean, they just don't. He will be paid as much as any non-quarterback in the league, and he affects games about as much as any non-quarterback in the league. When he was kind of healthy last year, the Giants pushed the Eagles to the brink, not the Eagles with Nick Foles when they were licking their wounds, but the Eagles early in the season. They barely lost to the Buccaneers on the road, and they barely lost a third game. I'm spacing it before he got hurt. And then they were one of the worst teams in the league. And that at the wide receiver position is extraordinary. It's one of the hardest positions to have that much influence on a game when you're only really part of 10 or 15 plays, or maybe you affect the defense's coverages so you have some more influence. So I think that any team that would have a chance to get him and not give up a top 10, top 5 franchised player type of pick would jump at it. And the Rams are jumping at it. And it's because of the value that he adds to the targets that he gets and the value he adds as part of your offense that the defense has to prepare for. The Giants now stepping back and getting out of what I think Dave Gettleman, we all remember, partially was run out of town, Carolina, because of the way he handled Josh Norman.
And Thomas Davis, the way he wanted to handle Greg Olsen and Thomas Davis too.
Yeah. So it kind of makes sense that Odell Beckham, being Odell Beckham, and Gettleman with the wheel would say, no, we're not going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. We're not going to pay him $20 million a year. And if you have clarity now, and you're already, by trading Jason Pierre-Paul and accelerating a $15 million cap hit from 2019 and 2020 into this year, you're in rebuilding mode. You're already chalking it up for this year. I mean, you're going to try to win. You're not going to start Nathan Peterman, but you're saying not this year. So it makes sense for them to be thinking about this. It doesn't make sense to me to trade him, but it makes sense to be thinking about it if you're inclined to do it. So I would love to see it happen. I'd love to see him end up with the Rams, but Matt would have to prepare for the 5-11 Seattle Seahawks.
Well, and we know Seattle, they're just stripping it down completely. We'll touch on that in a little bit, Matt, but on the Odell Beckham Jr. tip, if they do trade for Odell Beckham, can they at least throw Tavon Austin into the deal?
Yeah, right. That would be fantastic.
That was so weird. Like all these moves they've done, and like we're keeping Tavon Austin. Like, huh? Okay.
Well, I mean, what's nice is if they look at it as that they can use him strictly as a return specialist, they might as well just max out the value that they can get with him. But loving what that possibility would be for Jared Goff, because as we've talked about before, Jared Goff is a terrific timing passer, and the Rams got it right. They found receivers in Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp who actually know how to run routes. Josh Reynolds is a promising guy, but when they could get Sammy Watkins, who was proven on that level as a deep threat, why not do that and give Reynolds some time to sit on the bench? Well, now, they trade Watkins. They say they're excited about Reynolds, but again, if you can get Odell Beckham, who was one of the best route runners in the league, to pair up with one of the better route runners in the league in Woods, and then with a slot receiver who some defensive coordinators and some coaches, such as the Vikings head coach, said Cooper Kupp might have been their best wide receiver on the team last year. He thought that he was. And again, a consummate route runner. So you have three guys who are so good at being able to run an expanded route tree. What the offense McVay's able to do in that offense with those guys, and how he could move them around if he wanted to, it's going to pose a host of problems. It's not about solving one key to the puzzle, but you've actually just compounded the problems with Odell Beckham, adding him into that mix. And on top of that, you get an all-star player that a guy like Josh Reynolds can sit behind for another year or two and continue to learn. And they may say, well, maybe he leaves and gets another contract with somebody else. But if he hasn't played much at all, and the Rams are like, look, we're going to let you be the guy because Woods is going to be gone, or he's at an age where we're not cool with that, or we don't want to pay Cooper Kupp, or we don't want to pay Odell Beckham, after a couple years. Now they've got a guy like Reynolds who can step in and be ready. So from the standpoint of what it does for the offense and what it does for the younger players who can sit and watch this, there's a lot of great stuff, with that particular deal.
We're always going to pump up the league and be excited about it. This show started because of that, and always will remain with that passion and fire, Bloom. But honestly, free agency was a bit of a dud. Some quarterbacks, some movement here and there, some interesting stuff going on. But this effing trade tsunami, sorry, Joe, take your drink. This trade tsunami, on average in March, there are 7 trades per month, or in the month of March, on average in the NFL. I might have lost count, but the number's around 28. If you guys have the exact number, I know it was above 24, but this was like a week ago, and there's been more trades to come through. So why, Bloom, in your eyes, are teams, and the NFL is so against change, right? They're so slow to conform, so slow to change, Bloom. Why is it now that trade has become the new hotness, and the NFL is almost a bit like how fantasy football owners get that trade bug?
Exactly. I was going to say it's because it is kind of like fantasy football now. It's kind of like fantasy football because GMs are removing themselves one level from players and contracts and thinking of them as commodities, and how these picks and players with this contract help their team or don't help their team based on the phase of rebuilding or how close they are to winning or what cap situations they see coming up in the future. And they're more willing on both sides to get into equivalencies. And also, I think that teams are doing a better job of getting it out there that, and it's interesting because we have two layers to this. One layer is the trades, and you wonder, Cease, if Denver wouldn't have given up a 6th-round pick for Jared Veldheer, would he have just been cut? If Jacksonville wouldn't have given up a conditional pick for Cody Kessler, would he have just been cut? If the Patriots wouldn't have given up, what was it, like a 5th or a 6th for Cordero Patterson, would he have been cut? Probably. And that's where you end up with, well, because of their contracts, guys like Ndamukong Suh and Alan Hearns were cut. And then that was actually a wave of free agency that was just as interesting as the original wave of free agency. So I just think teams are having more drink clarity about this is what this player with this contract or this pick is worth to us. And also, I suppose this new attitude makes teams more willing to take chances. I mean, I think part of the reason you said NFL being sober isn't to change. It's that idea that, well, I'm not going to get fired for doing things the wrong way if it's the way everyone else does it. So no one was trading, so no one was going to trade. And then it loosened up over the last few years, and give Greg Rosenthal a big tip of the cap, because he was the one, I think, who coined that term, trade tsunami, in anticipation of this. And I think it's wonderful. I think it releases a lot of like juices and energy for fans. And I think it shows you, again, just like the draft, teams can't lie in the draft. Well, they can't lie when they're making trades either. So, and some of these trades we'll look back on and they'll be smart, and sometimes they'll be foolish, and it won't always be what we think at the time, just like the draft.
And they're so accepting, Matt, of taking lesser value. When you get Aqib Talib traded, and it's the Rams really that kicked this thing off. I mean, if memory serves, there's been so many damn trades, it's hard to keep up or to have clarity. There's another drink. Listen, you're going to watch this show. You're going to listen to the show, get drunk, and have fun tonight here live on YouTube. Of course, if you're listening to this podcast later, please no drinking and driving. But anyway, we promote these trades, Matt, and we promote the fact that teams are now just willing to wheel and deal. It's added this element to the NFL offseason that has made it just that much better.
Yeah, it's definitely been more entertaining. And I think that what Bloom talks about with the whole resistance to change that the NFL has had, you can kind of look at it a little bit further back and say, all right, well, who were the people in power and how did they get started? And what era of the league did they get started in at the top of the chain? And those were people who were in the dynasty era of football, of the NFL, where you built through the draft, you had longer contracts, you didn't have that much free agent, you didn't have any free agency. And then when you did, it wasn't as rapid fire as it's been in recent years. So those are the people who we've even heard, over and over again in big media talking about, you build through the draft, you don't build through free agency. The stats show that free agency really doesn't make a difference compared to what you do through the draft. The winning teams that do this, that, and the other, it's always that thing. And that made sense in the past. But now you're looking at it and going, well, back in the day when Chuck Noll could have a job when they were hanging Terry Bradshaw's, image, body and effigy up in Three River Stadium for how bad he was, and that Dan Reeves could basically be in a coach forever for the Broncos, using John Elway as it's time to use him now and not run the ball to Sammy Wander, and still keep his job for years on end. These are times have changed. You don't have that level of tenure with coaches or with GMs, and they know this now. And so when they're thinking, well, I'm going to draft this guy, and probably in 3 to 4 years, he's going to be good, just when I'm kicked out the door and we're nowhere near a 500 record. So what should I do? Get a player who's not going to be useful to me now, or to give up a little bit more to get a player who could be useful to me right away? And I think that that's what we're seeing as part of the part of what's factoring into this, trade tsunami and the ability to for teams to kind of loosen up, because I think GMs are looking around and going, this 6th round draft pick isn't going to do me any good, and if he does, it's going to be a total shocker. So why am I saying I'm going to build through the draft? Yeah, I'm going to build a house and someone else is going to live in it, and I'm going to be really happy about that? No, I don't think so. And I think that's what the NFL's have come to that realization.
Bloom, I want to pick your brain about the rule changes, and a catch is now a catch, and now guys like Derek Wolf, who I talked to yesterday, was like, I don't know how to do my job anymore because of the helmet rule. And of course, Bloom, as always and forever, the fantasy twist and the fantasy angle to this. More catches, more happy, more points, more better, but suspended players for helmet to helmet. I mean, if you're Tom Brady on a goal line sneak and you lower your head because it's a blanking goal line sneak, is that going to get you kicked out? Like everyone's confused, Bloom.
And LeGarrette Blount just running the ball the way LeGarrette Blount runs the ball. I mean, the catch rule is the NFL saying, our bad. We heard you finally. And I see the catch rule as I don't know if the verbiage makes it cut and dry, but I think it'll just go back to what we saw in the playoffs. Corey Clement. There's another play in the Super Bowl. I'm forgetting who it was with, but there were 2 plays in the Super Bowl that were not catches by the rule. But just as a football fan watching football, your life, you say that's a catch, that should count, and that's what we're going to have now. I don't think there's really. I was writing the Thursday update that goes out with the newsletter of news around the league and why it matters for fantasy. I really didn't have a good why it matters that this rule changed. I don't know that it will have any significant difference in fantasy football that we could measure, or it would change your strategy or change your lineups or anything like that. But I think it'll just make watching the game more satisfying. It's no consolation for us Steelers fans. Although, did you see Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert were at Lamar Jackson's pro day? Anyway, it's no consolation. Good. Yeah, it's no consolation for Des Bryant, who's going to get cut. But so that Packers hat, the people wearing that hat, that win still counts. The targeting rule is going to be frustrating, really frustrating, because I think just like the players, I don't think the NFL officials are going to know how to apply this rule at first. And I think that they're going to, I think it's almost impossible that they're going to err on the side of not applying the rule. I'm guessing they're going to get some sort of emphasis, and you're going to see, just like we see on Saturdays, some plays where we're baffled. Sometimes some of the plays we've seen players kicked out for targeting in college football doesn't even really seem to be an illegal play at all. So I don't know how they're going to legislate this. I would guess that much like the catch rule, it'll probably go through a period at first of some absurd applications of the rule, and then eventually some clarification. And the only reason I can think of for them putting in this rule is it allows them to take some sort of PR stance on player safety, but it doesn't actually increase player safety. And if anything, if players are thinking too much while they're out there and not playing the game in a natural way, that's going to cause more catastrophic injuries.
You can't avoid the violence of this game. And there are rules and laws in our own lives where, okay, it's like the guarantee on the box and Tommy Boy. It makes you feel good. It's not going to do nothing for you to make you safer. So the NFL, the players can be like, oh, hey, they're trying, and they can go to the PA in the next negotiation, which please don't be a lockout. Please don't. That's coming up. And the NFL can be like, well, we changed the rules. We're emphasizing player safety. All that is just window dressing, Matt. That's what this is. And they get the catch rule back. Cool. And now they've replaced it with this yet another confusing rule. And our man, Frank Schwab, who I talked to today earlier, said, hey, Saturdays are plenty confusing. And Matt, I know with as much film as you watch, you're skipping through some of that confusion, of course, but it's not like the Saturday game has been clean for college football because of the targeting rule, which is Bloom highlighted, is awful damn confusing.
Yeah, it really is. And it's to me, it reminds me of the movie Jaws. Now, Matt Harmon, if you're listening to the show, Jaws is this little movie made by Steven Spielberg. Oh, I don't know, a long time ago, about 43 years ago, about a shark that terrorizes a coastal town in the Northeast. And see, in that movie, the shark eats this little boy. And of course, there's
spoiler alert.
Yeah, there you go. And so there's a, but Matt's not going to see it. So, and he's the only one in the world who probably hasn't seen that movie since had to get him to see Shawshank Redemption. Ryan Riddle nearly threw him out of the car when he found out that he had never seen it. But anyway, it's that scene where they basically have they post up basically a bounty for the shark, and everybody goes hunting for sharks, and they're like, going in there with dynamite and throwing dynamite in the water, and there's this mass chaos all off the coast of this little town of Amity because the government basically wants to make it look like they're doing something about a problem that they don't know how to solve, rather than just taking their time and taking a more measured stance about it to make sure that they're actually protecting the people that are involved the best, rather than having all these basically day traders come out there with with their hunting and fishing weapons doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And I think that that's what the NFL has basically done, is overreacted. And I think that that's where I think big organizations where they have their biggest trouble is that they tend to underreact on certain problems and overreact on others. And this is a case where they're overreacting, and they should be taking their time and say, we need to study this a little bit more. We understand the seriousness of this. But I think anyone who is even a half-baked fan of the game, whether you've been, drinking a number of clarity, and you've had to, and now you're half-baked. Well, yes, now you're in a situation where even then you could be a good ambassador, even on your bar stool, and kind of half-conscious to be able to say, look, these players are going to hurt themselves, and there are going to be more injuries with what Bloom exactly said, for them overthinking about what they're doing out there, and it's going to make it worse, as opposed to just taking their time and figuring out, how do we best do this? How do we study it? And I think that that's one of the biggest problems with this particular rule. And you're going to wind up with situations where you're going to have over-officious umpires making calls that that are going to impact games, but it's not like that's not as bad of a deal as having a player get hurt, and it's probably going to be a defensive player more than an offensive player. You're going to end up with more defensive players getting injured because of the fact that they're hesitating in some way not to hit someone, or they're just going to say, screw it. You know what? I'm just going to do what I need to do. And if I have to set aside money for a fine or a suspension, and I wouldn't be surprised if coaches off the record say, look, we don't know what to do. We know you don't know what to do. If you get fined and suspended by the league, well, we're not going to cut you for it. But, at the same time, we want you to be safe, and we'd rather you be safe and deal with the consequences than, get hurt trying to do something that makes no sense.
And maybe you're just half-baked because you smoked a Fatty Bo Batty blunt. You're watching football saying, this one's for Killer B. It is the Audible Live. Half-baked references are always welcome. And as we go through tonight's news and notes, Bloom, it seems like an exercise we do every year, but the Wonderlic results have been revealed, even though they're not supposed to be revealed. And now everyone's cracking on Lamar Jackson for the 13. They're saying, which I think is more of an insult to Josh Allen, because they're like, I'm surprised he was a 39. Like, what do you think? The guy's a tool bag? Like, come on. And can we please get around this and get by this? Because Blaine Gabbert had a 41 and Ryan Fitzpatrick had a 100 million, whatever, 51, whatever. Dan Marino and Jim Kelly had like 13.
Steve McNair.
It doesn't matter at all, Bloom. Why is, one, this information out there? And two, why do people go down this routine every freaking year? Another drink.
Alex M at Buckeye in Virginia, VA, actually tweeted at me when those results got leaked. Exactly what I was thinking, exactly what you said. He said, why do you think the Wonderlic results aren't kept private? Why? Why do we know this information? The NFL is very good at protecting information that it once protected. It's very good at punishing people and finding the parties at fault when things are released that shouldn't be released. So why do we learn this every year? I mean, we shouldn't. But putting that aside, the Wonderlic and that it's part of a prospect's profile at all is just another reminder of some of the very backwards thinking that still exists in NFL circles. And that's why sometimes, and Nolan Araki's not putting a draft cut out this year. Is that right? No, Nolan Araki. Is it? Am I hearing that correctly? So
off the top rope.
No, but I'm actually gonna I'm actually gonna say I don't. While Nolan Araki's name is attached to a lot of the stuff that we think that's a sign of backwards thinking, he's really just reflecting what's told to him, and it just reflects what the thinking is inside the league, not by everybody inside the league, and hopefully by fewer and fewer people every year inside the league. So the idea that the Wonderlic is administered is that old thinking. The idea that it matters is even further back in that old thinking. And, hopefully the fact that I think this year, with every passing year, there's less of a reaction to it. There's less people caring about it, honestly. And hopefully, it'll be one of those things eventually where when the Wonderlic gets leaked, nobody's going to care. Everyone's going to say, but did you see Cody Kessler got traded to the Jags? That's much more interesting. And it is.
Matt, it's football intelligence. That's what we care about, and that's what NFL teams should care about. And going through the rookie scouting portfolio, we are, within hours or a couple days of the rookie scouting portfolio 2018. Cannot wait to pick it up. You can pick up your copy at mattwaldmanrsp.com. You obviously see football intelligence when you watch these players, and it's something in manipulating the defense with their eyes. It's making the proper decisions on time, on target, pass placement, knowing what they can get away with, knowing what they can get away with, recognizing coverages, which in college aren't as, just different and really special as the NFL coverage, as I trip over my words to say special. Anyway, Matt, FBI, football intelligence. The Wonderlic doesn't have a damn thing to do with that.
Yeah, if you want to test somebody for how quickly they might be able to process a play, basically reading it in a playbook, and then maybe possibly being able to recite it back to the huddle, and make John Gruden happy, then yeah, certainly, then that test may do its job. That's about the only thing that it does, because it was a military test, or a test that was created for the military back around, just before World War II, I believe. So, it's one of those tests that what it measures too is it's a culturally biased test. And what that basically means is that the higher your education is in terms of, standard level of book learning, the higher that standard is, the more likely you're going to test well on that. But that's one type of intelligence. And there are a lot of people out there with, book smarts who don't have a lick of emotional intelligence. And, football, as I've talked about a lot, isn't a chess match. If it is, it would have been in the middle of a barroom brawl on biker night, because basically you have to be smart enough you have to be smart and resilient, and you have to be able to inspire other people to your cause. And you have to also remember things with all the chaos going on and figure out, okay, at that moment, I just remembered like 2 seconds ago that guy just lit that bottle of gin. I better get out of this room, meanwhile, maybe the more book intelligent guy is showing off about all his karate that he remembers, because, book smart people tend to show off what they're strong at, which is remembering things and how much knowledge they've obtained, as opposed to actually showing, actually having life skills. And I'm talking about extremes, folks. So I'm not talking about those of you who have gotten degrees. There are a lot of very intelligent people who also have emotional intelligence, who have intuition, who have creativity, who understand how to put all of those things together. And that's what great quarterbacks do. And so the best quarterbacks often have that emotional intelligence and that ability to tie everything together, all those skills together, to create intelligent, productive moments on the field that they may not have been able to study or weren't exposed to before the game. And that's something that I think the NFL misses out on because they are so based on that old school intelligence of the Wonderlic. Now, there are new things that are happening out there. I think, Robert Klemko did a really nice piece on Baker Mayfield, earlier this year, talking about the analytics of Baker Mayfield. But one of the things that I thought was most interesting about that story was that teams have now bought into this test that they do, during the combine, that the quarterbacks do, where it's basically using basically an iPad or something to punch in the test, and it reduces the level of cultural bias because it's more of a visual type of test, and it's one that's not so dependent on basic educational level in terms of reading comprehension and different types of different types of things on that level that you would get from like an SAT or a Wonderlic. And as a result, they're kind of tailoring it more to what's realistic about the types of intelligence and the type of visual learning or responsiveness to certain stimuli that's more psychological in nature, that doesn't have to be, you don't have to overcome with someone who may have had to struggle to get to the college program in terms of their book smarts. Because I mean, let's face it, if Michael Orr could take, what was it, 6 weeks of courses to get into college through a program at BYU that was literally a class a week, that the NCAA actually allows that to happen, and that they do it with players all the time, that tells you that really the idea that college football is meant to be an academic, you're doing this to get your degree and you're getting paid for your degree, is a complete crock. And because we already know that major schools steer players away from certain majors, that they discourage them to really work hard on certain levels unless they fully demonstrate, the academic capability doesn't interfere with their football. And while that's a problem all on its own, it does filter into the NFL because you're going to get players who are very intelligent but don't have the education level to really be where they should be. And as a result, when they now are into they're getting to try for a job in the NFL, it's being held against them, even though it was highly encouraged to get them into the college program because they run fast, throw far, and they're good at reading defenses and being able to make plays, and they have football intelligence, but they don't have the book learning and the level of education that there needs to be. And schools have passed people along, and and we can get into all that, but we won't. And then you get into the NCAA, which is basically saying, hey, we're making money off of it, and we're giving them a free education. And the degree's probably worthless, but we're still giving it to them. Especially, I mean, would you tell your kid? I mean, the way I look at it is this. I mean, if someone said to me, yeah, your kid could go to UCLA if they pass these 6 classes and they've been, and their reading comprehension level is on an 8, on like a 6th or 7th grade level, and they're in college, my wife would first kill me if I even allowed that to happen, but second, it would be one of those situations where, you'd be like, no, I wouldn't want my kid's getting cheated out of an education. Now, some people might go, well, my kid's going to get millions of dollars and that'll be good. Well, yeah, if they're that, 6th of a percentile of all football players, good luck with that lottery ticket.
It is the Audible Live. Thursday nights are never the same once we start going, and we are going right here, of course, with Cecil Lammey, Matt Waldman, and Sigmund Bloom. Dina reminds us, don't forget to hit the like on the video to help spread the word on the best fantasy football show there is. Thank you, Dina. And thank you all for subscribing. YouTube.com/footballguys, DOTCOM. We don't really promote this show, or this channel, but we should. And we certainly appreciate you guys for subscribing and hitting the little bell so you get a notification when we go live. Also, Brian chimes in about Baker Mayfield, best cross grabber in football. Here's the thing. I don't mind that. And I get in a little Baker Mayfield rant for you today. Listen, you want that confidence. You want that cockiness. And I don't give a damn if he's got the $1 million smile like Cam Newton. That's a good thing. I don't give a damn if he's super arrogant. You're a quarterback. You're a quarterback. I want my quarterback like Al Bundy with his hand jammed firmly in his pants and only takes it out to either hand off the ball or high five his teammates after a score. Other than that, jam it down your pants, keep it there, and let it, grab the crotch, show off, plant the flag, even though it's an artificial turf, and he couldn't do that. Like, okay, fine. I'm okay with that. The whole Baker Mayfield, like he's Johnny Manziel thing, like that is so wrong and so off for multiple reasons. And on the field being the most important, Manziel was always fraudulent in what he did and how it would translate to the pros. You can't make one read, then turn your back to the defense, run around, throw it up to God in heaven, and hope Mike Evans comes down with it. And he often did, as Mike Evans is incredibly talented. Baker Mayfield, in the way he uses his eyes and the accuracy, which, of course, a lot of those 5-yard slants, Matt, as you well know, in Washington preparing for the rookie scouting portfolio, I'm okay with my quarterback being a bit of an ass. I just am. Now, some teams aren't. A lot of teams aren't. Josh Rosen is a bit of an ass in a different way. Is he coachable? Can he stay healthy? Those are the two biggest questions for me with Josh Rosen. But the Baker Mayfield thing, man, I'm fine with it. Go be cocky. Go grab it all day, whatever. What I don't like, Bloom, as I get away from the grabbing junk conversation, is Sam Darnold not saying at the combine, like, yeah, I'm the best. I know it's something they're all supposed to say, but I want that. I want that attitude. I want that alpha male leading the team because that's what you need. I don't want Stuart Smalley. Not that Darnold's done that. And let's examine the pro day, Bloom. The pro day for Darnold in the rain, it just didn't seem like he's having fun. He's a guy to me that, at the combine wasn't as maybe cocky as he needed to be, whether or not that means anything, whatever. It's just my personal preference. Darnold also like super, super young. You can tell. Talk to him at the Super Bowl. Super young guy. It's going to take some time. There's tools there, certainly. Sam Darnold could be the number 1 overall pick. We know that, although that might be a smokescreen to get the Giants moves. More on that in a little bit. But with Darnold, it comes down to, okay, are you ready to learn or to change things? Because at the combine, he's like, I'm not changing my throwing motion. And he didn't. And at his pro day, he still had that damn loopy, windy motion. It's interesting that Byron Leftwich was there to watch him with the Cardinals staff, right? Because he's like, I know how to deal with that. But it's different from what we've seen with Josh Allen. As I was at the Wyoming Pro Day last week, and we've seen him make the changes. We've seen him improve the footwork. We've seen him take the strides. Yeah, I know I got stuff to work on. And he had fun. And I know it's a pro day doesn't mean a damn thing. Okay, we know that. So we're not here to debate what do pro days mean. But when a guy's having fun, he's open to learning. He's super confident. He says, I'm the best. And I like that. With Darnold, there are mechanical things that scare me. And I'd like him to have a little bit more attitude, Bloom.
Yeah, that's fair. Sam Darnold may well be in the mold of, say, Joe Flacco or Eli Manning, where another player is going to be the biggest personality on the team, like Ray Lewis or Michael Strahan or something like that. Andrew Luck is another one that comes to mind, where I say often teams take on the personality of their head coach and quarterback. And when the quarterback's personality is kind of flat, then oftentimes another player's big personality will fill that vacuum. I don't see Darnold's throwing motion as a big issue. When Darnold is making his best plays, it's outside of structure, and he shortens his throwing motion or alters it in a way to make the play. So I'm not worried about that. And unlike Byron Leftwich, because with Leftwich it was the big windup, but he also was like a pitcher, and he needed a big mound to fall off of too. In an NFL
splits.
Yeah. Exactly. NFL pockets don't often give you that big clearance to land. I think that this is a really interesting quarterback class, and this is a chance for me to plug that I just put out I had to write a positive piece on Josh Allen just because the negativity about Josh Allen has become so overwhelming that I felt like someone needed to put a little pebble on the other side. And I was very pleased that my man Paul from Saturday to Sunday was willing to come out on the island. The island is beautiful, folks. There's beach and there's coconuts, and you can come out on the Josh Allen Island with us. And I'm not saying that Josh Allen's going to be a success. I'm just saying when I watched Josh Allen, this is what I saw, and I suppose it seemed better than it really was because I was expecting to see a scattershot quarterback that on any given throw, you didn't know what you were going to get. And that's not, I mean, Josh Allen gives away a few throws a game. So did Donovan McNabb. So did Brett Favre. But it isn't how many throws away game you give away. It's what you add to the throws that you can make too. Does that balance out? Anyway, Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, they're all very different from each other. And what I've really enjoying about this draft season is each one of them is a Rorschach, and you're learning so much. And I'm going to tip the cap here to Mark Schofield, who is one of the, if you don't know Mark Schofield's work and you want to just learn about thinking about quarterback play, Mark Schofield's fantastic. And you see by how everybody in our community is reacting to what they see on film, a philosophy of what works in the NFL and what doesn't, and translating quarterback play from college to the pros emerges. And we're all going to be right and wrong sometimes because the range of outcomes is wide. You know, the bottom of Josh Allen's range of outcomes is absolutely lower. Yeah, it's absolutely, because you could see a loss of confidence because of some of his decisions and because of some of his accuracy problems. You could see a total loss of confidence at some point, where Baker Mayfield's ceiling might be lower than Allen's, but his floor might be higher, and so on and so forth. So and then see, you're getting into some things like personality, which absolutely also belongs in here, and where players are on their development curve. So I think this is going to be really fun. And see, bring it all back to what you were saying, like how this show came out of you and I talking about the draft for 3 hours on the phone and saying, hey, do you want to do this and record it? It's that the NFL draft is the ultimate cliffhanger. We're all going to wonder, like you said, well, do the Browns really want Darnold? Or are they just trying to get the Giants to give them a pick to come up to Darnold, to get Darnold when they don't really want Darnold at all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the real cliffhanger is how these players' careers are going to unfold. And so you get over the exhilaration and adrenaline, like we all will, of this draft. There hasn't been a quarterback draft this strong at the top for a long time. Well, this deep. I mean, we're going, if we don't get 5 first-round quarterbacks, somebody's making a big mistake, and we might get 6, and that might be 2 big mistakes. But
or 7.
Or 7. Yeah, maybe. And some of it is, I understand, and I made this point at the end of the Josh Allen article. At this point, and this is going to make poor Matt like cry, but if you want to take a quarterback in the first round, you might as well take him in the top 5. It doesn't matter, because the cap is so out of whack with quarterback salaries that if you have to pay $18 or $20 million a year for Sam Bradford or Case Keenum, which is more than any other player at any position, then the advantage you get when you're paying your quarterback a rookie contract, even the number 1 pick in the draft, is massive. It gives you, it's like a cheat code in a video game. So if you're willing to take him, and that's why teams are going to look back at what Houston and Kansas City did last year and the patience they showed. Teams are not going to be able to be that patient now. Teams aren't going to be that patient this year. They can't. You saw what Buffalo's doing. You see what the Jets are doing. You saw what the Eagles did in preparation for their move. So the Eagles were ahead of the curve. The Jets and the Bills are trying to stay on that curve, and it creates for a very exciting draft, and then it creates for great storylines for us to follow. And no matter what we say as we compare these 5 quarterbacks to each other, for each of them, the range of outcomes is still very wide, and we can be right and wrong. Like Jared Goff, everybody was right about Jared Goff or wrong about him, then everyone was wrong about him or right about him. Wait a year. Marcus Mariota. It's why we're able to do this, and it never gets stale.
It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I'll tell you what's not fantastic. The groupthink that is rampant in the draft community. That's why the rookie scouting portfolio stands out, because it is not groupthink. It is incredible work. And the work is shown by Matt Waldman. You pick it up at mattwaldmanrsp.com, and it's something that stands out. And it is that Josh Allen groupthink that has gone out of control. Just simply out of control. And again, not that Josh Allen's going to be the greatest ever. He's my 3rd-rated quarterback this year. And yeah, the accuracy issue is the big issue for me. And that's something historically we don't normally see, but he's not Jake Locker. And Locker was perfect mechanically. Allen's cleaned some stuff up. And Allen, in fact, Matt, has won the offseason, whatever that means. Because at the Senior Bowl where we were, he missed the damn net. The video went viral. He was 10 yards away, huge net, and he just missed it. That's accuracy issue. But as Tuesday, better. Wednesday, better. Thursday, better. Played well in the game, although we normally, Pat White was MVP of that game. So, but Kareem Hunt was last year as well. Anyway, and then at the combine, best quarterback at the combine. We look at the pro day, best pro day of any of these quarterbacks. What exactly does it mean? And looking at the Josh Allen groupthink, Bloom, and I know you, Mr. Counterculture, of course, went and put that pebble on the other side for good reason. And Matt, you're in Georgia, I'm in Colorado, so you can't throw anything at me when I mention this, but I want to pick your brain about it. Matthew Stafford was a 57% passer in college. In his first 5 or 6 years, he had 1 year above 60%. I think it was like 60. And then, now we regularly see him in the mid 60s where you need to be in the NFL. And I've never compared Josh Allen to Matthew Stafford, but just from an accuracy standpoint, because I know Brett Favre changed his accuracy. Mike Pritchard reminds me of that every day on The Fan as Pritch and I go back and forth. Of course, he played with Favre. He was drafted the same year. He's the first round pick when Favre was the second round pick. And Favre changed his accuracy from college to the pros. Well, I don't like to compare to all-time greats like Brett Favre is, but I'll compare to Matthew Stafford. Most notably, I have Josh Allen pegged today as Blake Bortles. I think today's Blake Bortles. I think in the future, he could be Joe Flacco-ish in the way that he plays and the way that you can use him because of that big arm and standing on the sidelines. And Bloom, you remember this, and Matt, you know this as well. When you not only hear the thwip, it's like a little Spider-Man noise, a little thwip when the pass is caught, but when there's a one receiver at the Wyoming Pro Day was letting a pass into his body, and there would be like boom, just big thump, and you're like, oh my God, dude, you're gonna get hurt. Jordan Palmer told me to back up because one of the passes was coming in. He's like, it's gonna go right at you, so back up. And when that pass came in, you just had a thought of almost fear. Like if I was in the wrong position or I was looking at my phone or whatever, I get my head lopped off by a Josh Allen pass. When I see him throwing 85 yards, 85 yards, it's unusual. The skill set, it's almost superhuman. So let's discuss this accurately, Matt, because there are some big time question marks with Josh Allen. There's also some very intriguing tools that none of these other quarterbacks have there to work with.
Absolutely. And I think that the thing is that when we look at quarterbacks, that everything that Bloom talked about and you've talked about with personality and with what we assign to a leader and how we project that onto a leader and what NFL teams do to project on that. And then I love the aspect of what Bloom brought up of why do they even leak the combine information, and the same reason why they even ask why if someone's mother is a prostitute and if they're gay.
You like girls.
It's the whole shock and awe campaign that these teams do, which again goes to show you two things. One is that they think they know better than everyone else because they invented this lemonade stand, so they think that they're the only ones who understand it, even though if they actually stepped outside of their hind parts for a second and looked around, that they would find that corporate America has plenty of great tests out there to gauge that type of thing that doesn't involve any type of potential lawsuit or any type of potential issue and doesn't create pressure on the players to not say anything for the sake of that they know they'll get blackballed out of the league if they complained about it. I mean, watching Kenny Stills squirm when he was asked those questions and if he thought they were right on Rich Eisen's show is a pretty telling indication of, yes, I'd like to keep my job. Don't ask me that dumb question, even though I'd like to tell you, yeah, it's a stupid question. And I wanted, but it's, the NFL looks at that, says, we're going to, this is what happens on the field all the time. So we feel within our element to ask that question. Well, that's fine that happens, but you can still have a subtler way and more effective way of gauging that without having to ask the way that you do. And so when you look at the way that they project this information on these players and go about all of what they're doing, you look at Josh Allen and, the thing is that they really like him. They've always really liked him because he does fit that old school mentality of an I formation drop back quarterback who has really good play action skills, who is someone that can throw you out of trouble, who's mobile, who can shake off defenders. And those are really nice positives. And the problem is that his strengths get conflated with what people perceive Lamar Jackson's strengths to be. And you end up in the situation where, yeah, the NFL's wrong with the way they look at Lamar Jackson, but they're going to try and prove that right as much as possible in the way that they do things. And then at the same time, they may be wrong about him, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong about Josh Allen. It doesn't mean that Josh Allen's the bad guy because Lamar Jackson is getting the shaft. You know, it's not Josh Allen's fault that he's in this situation. It's not his fault at all. He's just trying to get a job and do the best that he can. So when you look at his game and you remove all of that, dumbassery aside from it, you can actually watch the tape, and what you see is a quarterback, again, who's strong in the I formation game, someone that actually throws with better touch than the way that it's described, because all you're hearing about is the 85-yard throw and the being able to rip somebody's head off on the sideline, and all of those things that are really appealing on a certain level physically. But he does throw with touch. You see instances where he can climb a pocket and throw on the move. And there's certainly things to work with there. For me, the concerns that I had when I watched his game wasn't so much about accuracy as just a general rule. It's more about the advanced concepts of accuracy that all quarterbacks we don't talk about enough, which is when pressure comes, do you maneuver away from it, and do you get your feet reset so that you can fire accurately? And if you can't reset your feet, can you still refire it accurately? Well, Sam Darnold, we know, can have his feet parallel to the line of scrimmage and still throw an accurate ball with touch or with velocity oftentimes. And when he's off, it's usually because he misread the coverage. And that's what's going to take him a little bit of time to do. With Josh Allen, the problem that I have with him is that if he can run away from pressure and throw on the move, it's great. But if he has to stay in a confined pocket, he's either going to try and shoot out the back door and reverse field and run around all over the place and try and be the next Favre Elway and wind up in a more precarious situation, or he tends to rush his throw or stare down somebody or compound his mistake. And there are times that when he can see a player who has or should have seen a player, he's looking right at the player oftentimes, who looks like he has the open path, that he has the leverage against the defender, and he drops back, and when he feels or senses that flash of a jersey that's not his, he ends up trying to run away, and he ends up in a situation where he could have climbed, reset, and fired. Now he might have had to take a hit, but he would have had a wide open player. And you see kind of a I can do it all myself mentality. And, if all quarterbacks are management candidates, and you think about it from that standpoint and how we project everything on them, well, Josh Allen would be the kid who's super skilled at what he does in terms of the tasks that he was hired to do. But now he's about to get promoted. And that means that he's going to have to be more of a delegator. He's going to have to be someone who gets the best out of his teammates. He's going to have to be more of that leader. And Josh Allen's more that guy at your office who was a great worker, but that when things get rough, you're afraid that he's going to go, I can do it all myself. He's not going to ask you for help. He's going to be the one that's going to go, I can do it, run around, lose 10, 15 yards, and then try and do all that. And the question is can he break himself of that habit? Can someone teach him otherwise to mature and not have his first reaction be, I can do it all myself, and his reaction be go, how do I help my teammates make me look better? How do I involve the team? How do I do all those things? But those are more advanced issues. The thing is that I think that when I look at Josh Allen, I agree with you. I had him as a Blake Bortles, Joe Flacco range of my comparison as well. Is that a top 15 pick? Is that a first round pick? Is that a third round pick? And I think that if you're grading to the realistic standards of the way the NFL is, I think Bloom's argument is valid. Yeah, sure, he is. Salary, salary cap, the players you can get, the way the NFL is, the smell of desperation that they have, basically. Yeah, when it's time to get a quarterback that I think might have it. But if you're going to say, You know what? Let's be different, because 85% of the decisions that are being made aren't working. I'm throwing out a number. I'm not really meaning that number, but a high percentage don't work. Well, maybe we should go a different way instead of beating our heads up against the wall. And if that's the case, then my standard is, this guy is probably a 3rd or 4th or 5th round guy who I'd be really excited about to get there, but I'm not about to invest in this guy because, as we talked about earlier, in 3 to 4 years, somebody else might be living in my house that I just, where I bought all those materials, and now it's a great house, but I'm looking on the outside in.
A lot of our texters and our listeners in our chat room, which is reacting to me, says, is NFL patient enough now, Bloom, to allow someone like Josh Allen the time, or Lamar Jackson? And Bloom, before we're out of here, I got to know who the 7th would be, because the 6th would be Mason Rudolph,
right,
who was never blitzed at Oklahoma State. And we'll talk all day about Big 12 quarterbacks. And the last good Big 12 quarterback was Sam Bradford. We see how that's worked out. Whatever, but it would be Mason Rudolph. And Lamar Jackson is at least top 20. I don't think Buffalo is doing their due diligence. Let's say that. I think they're kind of forced to, because they realize they can't get to 1 or 2. They really like Josh Allen, but I've also heard that Lamar Jackson is on their wish list as well. So, okay, Rudolph. Is it Kyle Lauletta, Matt? Is it, because I've heard the Saints, but the Saints in the 2nd for Lauletta. We also have the Chargers, the Ravens, and even the Cardinals trying to get out of their nightmare quarterback situation. We've got some teams in the middle of the 1st round that you're thinking, they're fine with Joe Flacco. No. We mentioned the Steelers. Brian, by the way, in the chat room, is a Steelers fan like us, Bloom, and he is hoping for Lamar Jackson. That would be great, because Josh Dobbs, you're an egghead. You're super smart. You can't play football. So Bloom, let's discuss this before we're out of here. Who would that 6th? And could it be this crazy? Yeah. Why? 4 going in the top 10. 4, and it might be 1, 2, 3, 4 if Cleveland trades out of 4. So 4 in the top 10, certainly 5 in the 1st round, and let's just keep it going. Let's just get crazy.
Yeah, and I don't have, no one stands out to me as that worthy 7th quarterback, but I do think Lauletta has a narrative going for him right now. And people are looking at Jimmy Garoppolo and wondering. And I'm curious that Cleveland might be getting this right because they brought in Drew Stanton. So it sure looks like Cleveland will not play the quarterback that they take this year, or have no intention of doing that.
And now they have to take him at 1 because I have it on good authority that they wanted, and this was a while ago, and I had heard they're going to trade for Tyrod Taylor, and that happened. And they wanted Saquon Barkley at 1. But when the Jets moved to 3, it changed their thinking, because now it's not like, we'll take Barkley at 1. Okay, you got Bradley Chubb to the Colts at 3, and maybe the Giants take somebody, maybe they don't, a quarterback. And at 4, we can get the quarterback. No, now it's quarterback at 1. But as you note, Bloom, someone they won't play, unlikely.
Yeah. And it makes it easier to take Josh Allen, or really even Sam Darnold, since he's so young, and you want him to take better care of the ball. But it would be really compatible with taking Josh Allen. And then with Lamar Jackson falling out of that top 4, play them right away, top 10, play them right away, to the Steelers, to Arizona. What about Mike McCoy? Look what he did with Tim Tebow. What could he do with Lamar Jackson? So maybe Arizona's in a good position to let him be in the incubator for a year. So maybe teams are starting to get this, because we're going to see it with Pat Mahomes this year. We saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo. So maybe teams are starting to understand that your chances of success go up if you don't rush that quarterback, from Matt Waldman's lips to the Footballguys' ears. But I want to know who Waldman thinks the 7th is going to be too.
No, I think Lauletta is probably one of the guys that would be in consideration, because there are a lot of folks who are associated with NFL types who like him, and you can see his ability to work outside the pocket. He again has that skill working in the play action game from under center, and they like his athletic ability. He's got quiet feet, which is something that you can say Jared Goff has, Russell Wilson has, a lot of players who are mobile in the pocket, but also don't eat up a ton of space when they don't have to. to make that throw. So Lauletta already has that, in his tool bag. And I think that makes him an interesting pick. And then I've even heard, and I don't think it's going to happen, but I've even heard Mike White is a guy that's been mentioned from time or two from Western Kentucky. And, the one thing I can say about White is he might have had the most impressive single play from a conceptual standpoint that I saw evaluating any quarterback in this draft class, just in terms of his ability to manipulate zone in the middle of that barroom brawl in Biker Fest. He was basically, out there being able to be in a situation where 3 reads didn't come open, a 4th read was there, and he was able to manipulate a defender who was on his periphery. And you could tell looking over the tape that he knew right away, avoiding pressure, what he was doing to manipulate this guy who he made adjust 2 different times to be able to deliver the ball to an open receiver running a dig route. And it was one of those things that I look over and over again and think, nah, I haven't seen anyone go through that many progressions, go back to the first one, and then manipulate a guy who was in obvious position to be able to make that throw. And there are some folks who've, when you look at his game, he has some ability to move well in the pocket. He's got a decent arm. It's not unbelievable, but he's a guy that people may look at and say he plays in that pro style set. It would be kind of like that Akron Zips pick. What was that kid, Charlie Fry? It would be kind of picking.
He's one of the names on the jersey, on that Brown jersey.
Yeah, it would be kind of one of those deals. He'd be kind of like that Charlie Fry pick where teams might be a little bit more intrigued, or a Jason Campbell pick where they're intrigued with a guy for certain reasons, but he may not quite be ready to go. So, I mean, those are the 2 that really are fascinating to me. But I really do hope that the NFL does get it. I hope they do figure out that they can, that they should wait on these guys a little bit longer and be patient and give them some incubation time. Part of that experience though too, and I'll keep this short, is part of that experience is also when they don't do well, benching them, but not basically running them over, and putting them under the bus when they have a bad game. And I think that the Browns DeShone Kizer ultimately did him a great favor, because even though I think they really screwed him over with the way they didn't have a quarterback room and the way that they handled that situation, getting him to Green Bay and then basically saying, you know what, we need to do what we didn't do with Kizer this time around. It's kind of a favor to Kizer, because the fans have probably already soured on him and the public already soured on him there. They're giving him a new lease on life for a team that actually has had a clue on how to develop quarterbacks, and they're going to start over again. So, when I think about what happened there, I think that that's actually a kind of a ray of hope for Kizer.
All this talk about biker bars has got me thinking about Sturgis and wearing assless chaps and a captain's hat and a coin changer. All chaps are assless.
I
just
that probably kept you out of fights.
Depends on which kind of a bar. That is a wrap for the Audible Live. It's Thursday nights. We've got the rookie scouting portfolio. Matt, give our listeners the up-to-the-date update on the RSP and just when they can get their grubby little mitts on it. You want to get it as well. Matt Waldman, RSP.com.
Yeah, I mean, it's been working on it pretty much day and night. That's why I'm sitting in this easy chair instead of in a regular office chair.
Looks like the trade tsunami went through your room too.
Oh, it did. Trust me. If I showed you the rest of it, you'd think that I was in a Hoarders episode at this point, because I've just been living in this office most of the time. But yeah, I'm editing the wide receiver chapter right now, and going through those edits. I'm going through the tight end edits on Friday. And then I'm putting the book together on Saturday with finishing touches. And so it should be ready as a little Easter egg for folks on April 1st, if not a little bit before. But we'll say April 1st sometime. At that point, I'll email everyone who has signed up to get it and who's repurchased it. You'll get an email letting everyone know that it's ready. I'll also, let everyone know on Twitter and Facebook that it's ready as well if you haven't purchased it yet.
Matt Waldman, RSP.com. Sigmund Bloom, final thoughts.
Oh, this is exciting. And this has been one of the more exciting off seasons I can remember. It's going to be an exciting draft into an exciting season. And everybody's energy out there is what fuels us. And Lord knows that Matt Waldman's running on fumes, so send a few more vibes to get over the goal line.
And complete the catch. Sigmund Bloom is awesome. You can follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. Matt Waldman is amazing. He is at Matt Waldman. I am at Cecil Lammey saying,
and he's fantastic.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Stay tuned and stay frosty.